Ethan's heart stopped when the invitation never came. His sister Lily's baby shower. The one event he'd been dreaming of since she announced her pregnancy. Had happened without him, without even a whisper of his name. Standing in his cramped apartment, staring at the photos flooding his phone from mutual friends, he felt the world tilt. Betrayal slicing deeper than any knife. It wasn't just the exclusion. It was the text from Mark, Lily's husband. Send it to A.M. Sloppy with whiskey and guilt. The baby wouldn't exist without you. Man. But she didn't want you there. I'm sorry. Ethan read it again, his fingers trembling. What did that even mean? He was Lily's brother, her confidant, her rock through their fractured childhood in rural Ohio. They'd shared everything, every secret, every tear, every dream. But now, this. The baby wouldn't exist without him. The words burned, a riddle wrapped in pain. He sank onto the couch, the springs creaking under his weight. At 28, Ethan had built a quiet life in Columbus, working as a graphic designer, keeping his head down, his heart guarded. Being gay in their small hometown had never been easy, as coming out at 17 had fractured the family. His father's silence louder than any shouting match. Lily had been his anchor, the one who stayed, who hugged him when their parents turned away. And now she'd shut him out. Why? The next morning, Ethan drove to Lily's house, a modest two-story on the edge of town, the kind of place where kids rode bikes and neighbors waved. His pulse raced as he knocked, the door swinging open to reveal Mark, bleary-eyed, still in yesterday's flannel. You shouldn't be here, Mark said, voice low, glancing over his shoulder like a man hiding a secret. I need to see her, Ethan said, his voice steady despite the storm inside. I need to know why. Mark hesitated, then stepped aside. Lily was in the kitchen, her blonde hair pulled back, her hands cradling her belly. She froze when she saw Ethan, her eyes wide with something between guilt and fear. Ethan, she whispered. I didn't want it to be like this. Then why? His voice cracked, raw with hurt. Why wasn't I invited? After everything. She looked away, her fingers tightening on the counter. It's complicated, she said, barely audible. It's not just about you. Then what? He pressed, stepping closer. Mark's text, what did he mean? The baby wouldn't exist without me. Lily's face paled, and Mark swore under his breath, rubbing his neck. The air grew thick, heavy with unspoken truths. Ethan's mind raced, piecing together fragments. Late night talks with Lily about her struggles to conceive, the doctor visits, the tears. He'd been there, holding her hand, researching options when hope seemed lost. And then, a memory flickered, a conversation about surrogacy, about donors, about family. Lily, Ethan said, his voice barely a whisper. Did you use my? Her silence was answer enough. The room spun. Ethan stumbled back, his heart pounding. He'd donated sperm years ago, a quiet act of love for a friend's sister, never thinking it would circle back to his own family. Had Lily used it? Had Mark known? And why keep him away? I didn't want you to feel trapped, Lily said finally, tears spilling. I didn't want you to think you owed us anything. But Mom and Dad, they found out. They said if you were there, it'd be too much. Too many questions. Ethan's breath caught. Their parents. Of course. They'd never accepted him. Never forgiven him for being himself. And now they'd poisoned this moment. This joy. Turning his sister against him. But Mark's text, there was more to it. Something darker. Something Ethan couldn't yet grasp. I'm not letting this go, Ethan said, his voice hardening. I deserve the truth. All of it. Lily nodded, wiping her eyes. Tomorrow, she said. Come back tomorrow. I'll tell you everything. As Ethan drove home, the Ohio fields blurring past, he felt the weight of a story unraveling, a story of love, betrayal, and a child caught in the crossfire. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but he knew one thing. He'd fight for his place in this family, no matter the cost. The next morning, Ethan woke with a knot in his stomach, the kind that felt like it could choke him. He replayed Lily's words, her tear-streaked face, and Mark's cryptic text. The truth was close, but it felt like stepping into a storm. He drove back to Lily's house, the Columbus skyline fading into the rearview, replaced by the familiar sprawl of their hometown. The air was crisp, October leaves crunching under his tires, a reminder of the fragility of things left untended. Lily was waiting on the porch, wrapped in an oversized sweater, her eyes red but resolute. Mark was nowhere in sight, and Ethan felt a flicker of relief, wasn't ready to face the man who dropped that bombshell text. Come inside, Lily said, her voice soft but steady. The house smelled of coffee and cinnamon, a warmth that clashed with the tension between them. They sat at the kitchen table, a photo of their childhood selves on the wall behind, a reminder of the bond they'd once had. Unbreakable until it wasn't. Ethan waited, his hands clasped tightly, as Lily took a deep breath. I should have told you sooner, she began, but I was scared. Not just of Mom and Dad, but of what it would mean for you. Tell me, Ethan said, his voice low, urgent. Did you use my donation? She nodded, her eyes meeting his for the first time. We were desperate. Mark and I tried for years. Ethan. Tests. Treatments. Nothing worked. The doctors said our best shot was a donor. But we couldn't afford the clinics, the fancy catalogs. Then I remembered, you'd donated years ago. For Sarah's sister. I called the bank. It was still there. Ethan's mind reeled. He'd donated at 22. A naive act of kindness, never imagining it would tie back to his own blood. And you didn't tell me. His voice rose, sharp with hurt. You went behind my back. I wanted to protect you, Lily said, her voice breaking. I thought if you knew, you'd feel responsible, like you had to be part of this in a way you didn't choose. And Mom and Dad, they found out when I let it slip during a fight. They were furious, said it was unnatural, that you being involved would taint everything. Ethan's jaw tightened. Their parents' bigotry wasn't new, but hearing it weaponized against his sister's childish child, in a way cut deeper than ever. So you let them decide I wasn't welcome? At your baby shower. It wasn't just them, Lily admitted, her voice barely audible. Mark, he's been struggling. He loves the idea of this baby, but knowing it's yours, biologically, it's been eating at him. He didn't want you there, either. Not because he hates Yoha doesn't. It's just complicated. Ethan leaned back, the chair creaking under him. Complicated didn't begin to cover it. He was the biological father of his sister's child. A secret kept from him. A truth that had fractured their family before the baby was even born. And Mark's text. He asked, "What was that about?" Lily hesitated, her fingers twisting the edge of her sweater. He was drunk. He didn't mean to send it. But he's been carrying this guilt. Like he's failing me. Failing the baby. He thinks you're the hero in this. And he's not. Ethan's chest tightened. He'd never wanted to be a hero. Just a brother. But now he was something else, something undefined. Caught between love and resentment. "I need to talk to him," he said. "Where is he?" "He's at the shop," Lily said, referring to Mark's auto repair business downtown. "But Ethan, be careful. He's not himself right now." Ethan stood, his resolve hardening. He wasn't just fighting for answers anymore. He was fighting for his place in this story. For the right to be seen. To be family. As he left the house, the wind carried the scent of rain. A storm brewing on the horizon. He drove to Mark's shop, the neon sign flickering in the gray light, and braced himself for what came next. Inside, Mark was hunched over an engine, grease staining his hands, his face drawn. He looked up, startled, as Ethan approached. "You got my text," Mark said. Not a question. His voice heavy with regret. "Yeah," Ethan said, crossing his arms. "And I'm here for the truth. All of it." Mark wiped his hands, his eyes avoiding Ethan's. "You want the truth. I'm grateful for what you did. Man. But it's killing me. Every time I look at Lily, I see you in this kid. And I don't know how to be okay with that." The words hit like a punch. Ethan wanted to scream. To shake Mark. To demand why his love for his sister had been turned into a wedge. But he saw the pain in Mark's eyes. The fear of being replaced. And something shifted. This wasn't just about him. It was about all of them. Tangled in a web of love. Fear. And secrets. "Let's figure this out," Ethan said, his voice softer now. "Together." Mark nodded, a flicker of hope in his eyes. But as Ethan left the shop, he knew the road ahead was long. The baby was coming. And with it, a reckoning for their fractured family. The rain started as Ethan drove home. Fat drops smearing the windshield, mirroring the blur in his mind. He'd always been the fixer, the one who patched up Lily's heart when their parents tore it apart. But this was a wound he didn't know how to mend. The baby is sister's, but tied to him in a way he hadn't chosen felt like a ghost haunting every thought. Back at his apartment, Ethan poured a glass of bourbon, the amber liquid catching the dim light. He didn't drink often, but tonight called for it. His phone buzzed a text from Lily. "Can we meet tomorrow? Just us. I owe you more." He stared at the words, torn between anger and hope. She owed him more than an explanation. She owed him trust. But he typed back, "Okay. Noon. The park. Neutral ground. Where memories of their childhood picnics might soften the edges of this mess." The next day, the park was quiet, the swings creaking in the breeze. Lily sat on a bench, her hands folded over her belly, her face a map of worry. Ethan sat beside her, the silence heavy until she spoke. "I should have fought harder," she said, "for you to be there. I let Mom and Dad's voices get in my head. And Mark's insecurities. I didn't know how to balance it all." Ethan's throat tightened. "You could have told me from the start. I would have understood. I would have supported you." "I know," she whispered, tears welling. "But I was ashamed. Not of you. Never of you. Of how I let their judgment twist this beautiful thing. This baby. It's a miracle. Ethan. And you made it possible." Her words were a lifeline, but they didn't erase the sting. Then why hide it? Why let them win? Lily looked down, her fingers tracing the curve of her belly. "Because I'm still that scared little girl sometimes. Afraid of losing them. Afraid of losing you. I thought if I kept you out of the shower, it'd be easier to keep the peace. But it wasn't. It broke everything." Ethan wanted to stay angry, to hold on to the hurt. But her vulnerability cracked something open in him. He reached for her hand, squeezing gently. "We're not kids anymore. Lily. You don't have to choose between me and them. But you do have to choose what kind of family this baby grows up in." She nodded, wiping her eyes. "I want you in her life, Ethan. Not just as an uncle, but as you. Whatever that means." The ambiguity of whatever that means hung between them. Ethan wasn't sure what role he'd play: uncle, donor, something else entirely, but he knew he wanted to be there. "We'll figure it out," he said, echoing his words to Mark. "But no more secrets." They talked for hours, unraveling years of pain, their parents' rejection, and the weight of this new life. Lily shared how Mark had struggled with infertility, how his pride had taken hit after hit, how he'd lashed out in fear of losing his place. Ethan listened, piecing together the man behind the text, the husband who loved Lily but couldn't escape his own doubts. As they parted, Lily hugged him, her belly pressing against him, a reminder of the life tying them together. "Come to dinner tonight," she said. "Mark's ready to talk. Really talk." Ethan agreed. But as he drove to their house that evening, his nerves hummed. Mark greeted him at the door, less guarded this time, a beer in hand as an offering. "Let's sit," he said, leading Ethan to the backyard, where fairy lights twinkled above a wooden table. Lily joined them, her presence a quiet anchor. "I messed up," Mark said, his voice rough. "That text, I was drunk, angry at myself. Not you. I know what you did for us, Ethan. I just don't know how to live with it sometimes." Ethan leaned forward, his eyes steady. "You don't have to compete with me, Mark. I'm not trying to take anything from you. I just want to be part of this." Mark nodded, his jaw tight. "I want that too. But it's hard. Knowing the kid's got your DNA. Feels like I'm on the outside." "You're her father," Ethan said, the word surprising even himself. "Not me. I'm just here. For her. For Lily. For you if you'll let me." The honesty hung in the air, raw and fragile. Mark took a long sip of his beer, then extended a hand. "Deal," he said, a small smile breaking through. "Let's do this right." As they ate, laughed, and planned for the baby, Ethan felt a flicker of hope. The road wasn't clear, but for the first time, they were walking it together. Little did he know, their parents were about to throw a new wrench into the fragile piece they'd built. The dinner had felt like a turning point, a fragile bridge rebuilt between Ethan, Lily, and Mark. For a week, Ethan let himself believe they could navigate this be a family. Unconventional, but real. He started sketching nursery designs for Lily, pouring his love into whimsical patterns, dreaming of a future where he'd hold his niece, not as a secret, but as a proud uncle. But the past has a way of clawing back. It was a Sunday when the call came. Ethan was at his desk, tweaking a logo for a client, when his phone lit up with his mother's name. He hesitated. Calls from her were rare, usually laced with judgment. But curiosity won. "Ethan." Her voice was tight. "We need to talk. In person. Now." He drove to his parents' house, a brick rancher unchanged since his childhood, every corner heavy with memories of rejection. His mother, Diane, waited in the living room, her face stern. Her husband, Tom, beside her, arms crossed. No warmth, no welcome. Just the same cold distance that had followed Ethan's coming out. "What's this about?" Ethan asked, standing, refusing to sit. Diane's lips thinned. "We know about the baby. About what you did. It's wrong, Ethan. Unnatural. We told Lily to keep you away, but she's not listening. So we're telling you stay out of it." Ethan's blood ran cold. "Stay out of my niece's life. You don't get to decide that." "We're her grandparents." Tom snapped. "We have a say? This arrangement. It's not right. People will talk. The church. The town, they'll judge her. Judge the baby." Ethan's hands clenched. "You mean they'll judge you? This isn't about Lily or the baby. It's about your shame. Your bigotry. I helped my sister have a child. That's love, not sin." Diane's eyes flashed. "You think you're a hero. You're confusing her. Mark's her husband, not you. You're making this harder for everyone." The words stung, but Ethan stood taller. "I'm not walking away. Lily wants me in her life. Mark's coming around. You don't get to erase me because I don't fit your perfect picture." Tom stood, his voice low, threatening. "If you keep pushing, we'll make sure you're not welcome. Anywhere." The threat hung heavy, but Ethan didn't flinch. "Try it," he said, turning for the door. "I'm done letting you control me." He drove straight to Lily's, his heart pounding with rage and fear. She was in the nursery, painting a mural of stars, her face lighting up until she saw his expression. "What happened?" she asked, paintbrush frozen. "Mom and Dad," Ethan said, his voice shaking. "They want me gone. Out of your life. Out of the baby's. They're calling it unnatural." Lily's face crumpled. "I thought they'd come around," she whispered. "I told them I wanted you here. That you're family. But they're so stuck in their ways." Mark appeared in the doorway, catching the tail end. "They called me too," he admitted. "Told me to keep you away. Said it's for the baby's sake. I told them to back off." Ethan looked at Mark, surprised. You did? Yeah, Mark said, his voice firm. I'm not perfect. Ethan, I've got my issues. But you're not the problem here. They are. Lily reached for Ethan's hand, her grip fierce. We're doing this together, she said. All three of us. They don't get to decide our family. For the first time, Ethan felt the weight of their alliance, a fragile but growing strength. They spent the evening planning, not just for the baby's arrival, but for the battle ahead. Their parents wouldn't back down easily, and the town's whispers were already starting gossip about the unnatural family, the gay brother who'd complicated things. Ethan knew the fight wasn't just for his place, but for the baby's right to a family free of shame. As he left, Lily hugged him tightly. You're her uncle, she said. And more. We'll make this work. Driving home, Ethan felt a spark of defiance. He wasn't just fighting for himself anymore. He was fighting for a future where love, not judgment, defined family. But the next day, a letter arrived anonymous, vicious, threatening to expose the truth about the baby's origins to the whole town. Ethan's resolve hardened. This wasn't just a family feud anymore. It was war. The letter lay open on Ethan's kitchen table, its typed words stark against the cheap paper. We know what you did. Keep away, or everyone will know. No signature. No return address. Just venom. Ethan's hands shook as he read it again, the threat coiling around his heart. Someone, maybe his parents, maybe a neighbor, maybe a stranger fueled by gossip, wanted to tear his family apart before it could even begin. He called Lily immediately, his voice tight. You need to see this. Within an hour, she and Mark were at his apartment, their faces pale as they read the letter. Lily's hand flew to her mouth. Who would do this? She whispered. Could be anyone, Mark said, his jaw tight. This town's small. People talk. And your parents, they've been stirring the pot. Ethan paced, his mind racing. They threatened me yesterday, told me to stay away. But this feels bigger. Someone's watching us. Lily sank onto the couch, her hands cradling her belly. I thought we could handle Mom and Dad. Keep it private. But this, it's like they're trying to shame us all. Mark put a hand on her shoulder, his voice steady. We're not hiding. We're not ashamed. Ethan's part of this. And anyone who's got a problem with that can deal with us. Ethan stopped pacing, struck by Mark's resolve. The man who'd once flinched at Ethan's role was now standing firm, a partner in this fight. We need to find out who sent it, Ethan said. And we need to protect the baby from this hate. They agreed to keep the letter quiet for now, but Ethan couldn't shake the unease. He spent the next few days digging, asking friends for whispers of gossip, checking local forums online. The town was buzzing rumors about Lily's unusual pregnancy, about Ethan's involvement, twisted into something sordid. He felt the weight of eyes everywhere. At the grocery store, the coffee shop, the park. His identity, once a private truth, was now a weapon. Then came the second blow. Lily called, her voice trembling. The church. They're holding a prayer meeting about us. Mom's leading it. They're saying the baby needs to be saved from our family. Ethan's stomach dropped. Their mother, Diane, had always clung to the church, its rigid rules a shield against anything that challenged her world. But this, turning a congregation against her own children, it was a betrayal deeper than he'd imagined. "We're going," Ethan said, his voice hard. "All of us. They don't get to do this behind our backs." That Sunday, they walked into the church together. Ethan in the middle, Lily and Mark on either side. The pews were packed, faces turning, whispers rippling. Diane stood at the front, her expression faltering as she saw them. The pastor, a stern man with wire-rimmed glasses, paused mid-sentence. "We're here to pray too," Ethan said, his voice carrying. "For love. For family. For a baby who deserves better than judgment." The room went silent. Diane's face reddened, but she didn't speak. Mark stepped forward, his hand on Lily's. "This is our family," he said. "Ethan's a part of it. If you've got a problem with that, say it to our faces." A few heads nodded. Some looked away, but the pastor cleared his throat. "This is a place of peace," he said, his tone uneasy. "Let's pray for understanding." It wasn't a victory, but it was a stand. As they left, Ethan felt a shift not in the town, but in them. They were no longer just reacting. They were claiming their space. But the anonymous letter lingered in his mind, a shadow of a larger threat. That night, he found a clue, a post on a local forum. Vague but pointed, hinting at unnatural families, and signed with an initial, T. Tom. His father. Ethan's heart sank, but he wasn't surprised. He showed the post to Lily and Mark, their faces grim. "We confront him," Lily said. "No more running." The next day, they drove to their parents' house, the letter and the forum post in hand. Tom opened the door, his face hardening as he saw them. "You shouldn't be here," he said. "Neither should this," Ethan said, holding up the letter. "Did you send it?" Tom's silence was answer enough. The fight that followed would test everything they'd built. But Ethan knew one thing: they'd face it together. The air in their parents' living room was suffocating, thick with years of unspoken grudges. Tom stood rigid, his arms crossed, while Diane hovered behind him, her eyes darting between her children and the letter Ethan held like a weapon. Lily's hand trembled in Mark's, but her voice was steady. "Dad, did you send this?" Tom's jaw tightened, his silence louder than any confession. Finally, he spoke, his voice low, controlled. "I did what I had to. For the family's sake. For the babies." Ethan's blood boiled. "For the baby. You're threatening us. Trying to tear us apart. How is that protecting anyone?" "You don't get it," Tom snapped, stepping forward. "This town, this church, they won't accept this. A baby with your involvement. It's a scandal. I'm trying to save Lily's reputation, the kid's future." Lily's eyes flashed. "My reputation? Dad, this is my family. Ethan's my brother. He gave us a miracle, and you're turning it into something dirty." Diane stepped in, her voice pleading. "We just want what's best. People are talking. Lily, they're saying awful things. We thought if Ethan stayed away, It'd be easier. Easier for who? Ethan asked, his voice sharp. For you. So you can pretend I don't exist. I'm not the problem here. Your shame is. The room fell silent, the weight of truth pressing down. Mark, usually quiet in these moments, spoke up. You sent that letter to scare us, to control us. But we're not backing down. This baby's ours, all of ours. Ethan's included. Tom's face twisted, a mix of anger and something like fear. You think you can just rewrite the rules? This isn't how family works. Then maybe you need a new definition, Ethan said, his voice steady despite the storm inside. Family isn't about hiding who we are. It's about standing together, even when it's hard. Diane's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't speak. Tom turned away, staring out the window at the darkening sky. You're making a mistake, he said finally. All of you. We'll take that risk, Lily said, her hand on her belly. But we're done with your threats. As they left, Ethan felt a strange mix of relief and dread. They'd faced Tom, called out his fear-driven cruelty. But the letter was just one piece of a larger puzzle. The town's gossip was growing, fueled by whispers from the church, from neighbors, from people who didn't even know them. Ethan knew they couldn't stay silent forever. The next week was a blur of preparation. Lily's due date was approaching, and the nursery was nearly complete, filled with Ethan's designed stars and moons painted on the walls. A crib Mark had built by hand. They were building a home for this baby, a sanctuary against the outside world. But the threats didn't stop. Another letter arrived. This one slipped under Lily's door. You can't hide the truth. Leave, or we'll make you. Ethan's heart sank, but he saw the fire in Lily's eyes. We're not running, she said. This is our home. Mark suggested they go public, tell their story before someone else twisted it. Ethan hesitated. Exposing their truth could backfire, make them targets. But silence hadn't protected them either. They decided to host a small gathering. Not a shower, but a celebration. Inviting friends who'd stood by them, neighbors who'd stayed quiet. It was a risk, but it was theirs to take. The night of the gathering, their backyard glowed with string lights, laughter mingling with the scent of barbecue. Ethan watched Lily and Mark move through the crowd, their love a quiet defiance. He spoke, his voice carrying over the chatter. This baby's coming into a family that's fought for her. We're not perfect, but we're real. And we're here. The crowd applauded, some with tears in their eyes. But Ethan noticed a figure at the edge of the yard, watching. A man, older, familiar. His father, a stranger. Before he could approach, the figure was gone, leaving only unease. As the night ended, Ethan knew the fight wasn't over. Someone was still out there, watching, waiting to strike. The gathering had been a triumph, a moment of light in the storm. But Ethan couldn't shake the image of that figure in the shadows. It gnawed at him, a reminder that their fight for acceptance was far from won. Lily was due any day now, and the tension in their little trio was palpable. Love held them together, but fear was a constant shadow. Ethan threw himself into work, sketching furiously, as if his art could shield them. But the threats escalated. A third letter arrived, this one mailed to his apartment, You're not family. Disappear. The words were colder, sharper, and Ethan's gut told him this wasn't just Tom anymore. Someone else was pulling strings. Someone with a grudge deeper than small-town gossip. He showed the letter to Lily and Mark. Their faces grim. We need help, Mark said, his voice steady but urgent. This is beyond us now. They agreed to contact a lawyer. Someone who could trace the letters. Maybe even press charges. But Ethan couldn't wait for legal answers. He started asking around. Discreetly. About anyone who'd been too curious. Too hostile. A name kept coming up, Pastor John. The church's leader. Who'd been unusually quiet since their confrontation. Ethan drove to the church. His heart pounding. The parking lot was empty. The building silent. But Pastor John was inside. Sorting hymnals. He looked up. Unsurprised. As Ethan approached. I figured you'd come. He said. His voice calm but guarded. Did you send the letters? Ethan asked. Cutting to the chase. The pastor sighed. Setting down a book. No. Ethan. But I know who did. And I've been trying to stop them. Ethan's eyes narrowed. Who? Tom. The pastor said, confirming Ethan's fears. And a few others from the congregation. They're scared. Ethan. Scared of change. Of what your family represents. I've tried talking sense into them. But they're set in their ways. Why didn't you tell us? Ethan demanded, his voice rising. You let them terrorize us. I was trying to protect the church, Pastor John admitted, his shoulders sagging. But I was wrong. I should have stood up sooner. I'll talk to them. Try to stop this. Ethan didn't trust him fully. But it was a start. He left the church with a plan, confront Tom again. But this time with proof. He called Lily and Mark. And they agreed to meet at their parents' house that evening. The air was thick with anticipation as they knocked. Tom opening the door with a scowl. We know it's you, Ethan said, holding up the letters. And we're done playing nice. Stop. Or we go to the police. Tom's face paled. But Diane stepped forward. Her voice trembling. It wasn't just him. She confessed. I helped. I thought we were protecting Lily. Lily's eyes filled with tears. Protecting me. You're tearing us apart. The argument spiraled. Years of pain pouring out Ethan's rejection. Lily's fear. Mark struggled to find his place. But in the chaos, something broke through. Diane sobbed, reaching for Lily. I'm sorry, she whispered. I was wrong. Tom didn't apologize, but his silence spoke volumes. They left with no promises. Only the hope that the truth had shaken something loose. That night, Lily went into labor. Ethan and Mark rushed her to the hospital. The world narrowing to the sound of her breathing. The urgency of the moment. In the waiting room, Ethan paced. Mark beside him. Their earlier tensions forgotten. She's going to be okay, Mark said, his voice soft. And so's the baby. Ethan nodded, his throat tight. We're doing this. Right. All of us. Yeah, Mark said, a small smile breaking through. All of us. Hours later, Lily gave birth to a girl. Ava. her tiny cries filling the room. Ethan held her first, his heart swelling as he looked into her eyes that might carry a piece of him, but belonged to all of them. The threats, the letters, the pain, they didn't vanish. But in that moment, they mattered less. They had a new fight now, to give Ava a world where love won. Ava's arrival changed everything. Yet nothing. The hospital room glowed with soft light. Lily exhausted but radiant. Mark's hand steady on hers. And Ethan cradling the newborn. His heart caught between awe and responsibility. She was perfect. A tiny miracle tying them together. But the world outside waited with its judgments and threats. Ethan knew the fight wasn't over. But holding Ava, he felt a new kind of strength. The first weeks were a whirlwind. Lily and Mark brought Ava home. And Ethan was there every day, helping with late-night feedings, sketching her tiny features in a notebook he kept just for her. The letters stopped. A small mercy. But the town's whispers didn't. Gossip swirled about this strange family. The gay uncle. The baby with questions around her. Ethan felt the stares at the grocery store. Heard the hushed tones at the diner. But he held his head high. Ava deserved a family unafraid. Lily and Mark grew stronger. Their bond deepened by parenthood. Mark, once torn by insecurity, found his place as Ava's father. His love for her fierce and unquestioning. Ethan watched, proud but cautious, knowing his role was still undefined. Uncle. Yes. But something more. Something they'd carve out together. They talked openly now. No secrets. No shame. It wasn't perfect, but it was theirs. Their parents were the last hurdle. Diane called a month after Ava's birth. Her voice tentative. Can we see her? She asked. Ethan braced himself. But Lily invited them over, determined to set boundaries. The visit was tense, stiff. Diane tearful, but Ava's presence softened the edges. Diane held her granddaughter, her eyes glistening. She's beautiful, she whispered. And for the first time, Ethan saw a crack in her armor. Tom said little, but he didn't push back when Lily laid out the rules. No judgment. No control. We're a family, she said, her voice firm. Ethan's part of it. Always. Tom nodded. A grudging acceptance. And though Ethan didn't trust it fully, it was a start. The town took longer. Pastor John kept his promise, preaching about love over fear. And some listened. Others didn't. But Ethan, Lily, and Mark built a circle of allies, friends, neighbors, even a few from the church who saw their love for Ava and chose to stand with them. The anonymous threats faded, either from fear of exposure or a shift in the air. Ethan never found out who else was behind them, but he let it go. Ava was his focus now. One evening, as spring bloomed, they sat in the backyard, Ava giggling in a bouncer, fairy lights twinkling above. Ethan looked at Lily, her smile bright, and Mark, his arm around her, at peace. We did it, Ethan said, his voice thick. We're a family. Lily reached for his hand. Because of you, she said. You fought for us. Mark raised a glass. To Ava. And to us. All of us. Ethan clinked his glass, his heart full. The road had been brutal betrayal. Secrets. Threats, but they'd come through. Not unscathed, but stronger. Ava would grow up knowing love, not shame, in a family that had redefined itself against all odds. Ethan looked at her, her tiny hand reaching for the stars he'd painted, and knew he'd fight for her always. This was their victory, their meaning, a family built on truth, love, and the courage to stand together.